Russia, also officially known as the Russian Federation, is a country in northern Eurasia. It is a federal semi-presidential republic. At 17,075,400 square kilometers, Russia is the largest country in the world, covering more than 1/8 of the Earth's inhabited land area. Russia is the world's 9th most populous country with nearly 144 million people in November 2014, extending across the entirety of Northern Asia and much of Eastern Europe. Russia spans 11 time zones and incorporates a wide range of environments and landforms. From northwest to southeast, Russia shares land borders with Norway, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania and Poland, Belarus, Ukraine, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, China, Mongolia, and North Korea. It shares maritime borders with Japan by the Sea of Okhotsk and the U.S. state of Alaska across the Bering Strait. The nation's history began with that of the East Slavs, who emerged as a recognizable group in Europe between the 3rd and 8th centuries AD. Founded and ruled by a Varangian warrior elite and of descendants, the medieval state of Rus arose in the 9th century. In 988 it adopted Orthodox Christianity from the Byzantine Empire, beginning the synthesis of Byzantine and Slavic cultures that defined Russian culture for the next millennium. Rus ultimately disintegrated into a number of smaller states. Most of the Rus lands were overrun by the Mongol invasion and became tributaries of the nomadic Golden Horde in the 13th century. The Grand Duchy of Moscow gradually reunified the surrounding Russian principalities, achieved independence from the Golden Horde, and came to dominate the cultural and political legacy of Kievan Rus. By the 18th century, the nation had greatly expanded through conquest, annexation, and exploration to become the Russian Empire, which was the 3rd largest empire in history, stretching from Poland in Europe to Alaska in North America. Following the Russian Revolution, the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic became the largest and leading constituent of the Soviet Union, abbreviated to USSR, the world's first constitutionally socialist state and a recognized world superpower, and a rival to the United States, which played a decisive role in the Allied victory in World War II. The Soviet era saw some of the most significant technological achievements of the 20th century, including the world's first human-made satellite, and the first man in space. By the end of 1990, the USSR, Soviet Union had the world's 2nd largest economy, largest standing military in the world and the largest stockpile of weapons of mass destruction. Following the partition of the Soviet Union in 1991, 14 independent republic nations emerged from the USSR as the largest, most populous, and most economically developed republic. The Russian SFSR reconstituted itself as the Russian Federation and is recognized as the continuing legal personality of the Soviet Union. After the disintegration of the Soviet Union, Russia adopted wide-ranging economic reforms including privatization and market and trade liberalization. Radical changes such as failed shock therapy was recommended by the top economists of the United States and the International Monetary Fund, which resulted in a disastrous fall of the nation's real GDP as well as industrial output by more than 50%, leading it to a major economic crisis. Hyperinflation, which wiped out personal savings, crime and destitution spreading rapidly. Russia also took up the responsibility for settling the USSR's external debts. Even though its population made up just half of the population of the USSR at the time of its dissolution, high budget deficits caused the 1998 Russian financial crisis and resulted in a further GDP decline. The Russian economy ranks as the 10th largest by nominal GDP and 6th largest by purchasing power parity in 2015. Russia's extensive mineral and energy resources, the largest reserves in the world, have made it one of the largest producers of oil and natural gas globally. The country is one of the 5 recognized nuclear weapons states and possesses the largest stockpile of weapons of mass destruction. Russia was the world's second biggest exporter of major arms in 2010-14, according to SIPRI data. Russia is a great power and a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, a member of the G20, the Council of Europe, the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and the World Trade Organization, as well as being the leading member of the Commonwealth of Independent States, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, and one of the 5 members of the Eurasian Economic Union, along with Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. Etymology. The name Russia is derived from Rus, a medieval state populated mostly by the East Slavs. However, this proper name became more prominent in the later history, and the country typically was called by its inhabitants, which can be translated as Russian land or land of Rus. In order to distinguish this state from other states derived from it, it is denoted as Kievan Rus by modern historiography. The name Rus itself comes from Rus people, a group of Iranians who founded the state of Rus. The current name of the country comes from the Byzantine Greek designation of the Kievan Rus, Rho Omega Sigma Sigma Iota Alpha Russia, spelt Rho Omega Sigma Iota Alpha in modern Greek. The standard way to refer to citizens of Russia is Russians.